Have you ever judged someone based on their appearance only to be shocked by the truth? What if the person you mocked for being beneath you held more power than you could ever imagine? This story would take you on a journey filled with twists, suspense, and heartwarming lessons about humility, kindness, and the danger of pride. Once upon a time in the Jute Kingdom, the colorful and busy marketplace was filled with chatter and the aroma of freshly baked bread. Among the crowd was a beggar, a man in tattered clothes, who sat quietly near the corner of a busy street. He wasn't the typical beggar who begged for coins or food. Instead, he offered help to those who needed it. One afternoon, the beggar saw an old woman struggling to carry a basket of yams. Without hesitation, he rose to assist her, his frail hands steadying the heavy load. The woman smiled and blessed him, leaving him with nothing but gratitude. Yet, nearby, a wealthy businessman named Ken watched the scene with disgust. Ken was one of the noblemen whose wealth had been handed to them by the former king. Even though he used the wealth given to him to trade, he was very arrogant. Why waste your energy helping others when you can barely help yourself? Ken sneered, tossing a silver coin in the beggar's direction, as if to emphasize his superiority. The beggar smiled and thanked him for his kindness. The calm manner of the beggar caused the marketplace to go silent, but Ken immediately dismissed the matter and continued with his day. Ken murmured, "This fool thinks he's noble," as he walked away from the scene. To his utter surprise, this unassuming beggar was hiding a secret that would undermine the foundations of the entire kingdom. Little did he know, this simple beggar had a secret that would shake the entire kingdom. Ken took great pride in his fortune. He was known as the town's richest man, and he went to great lengths to show off his wealth. The gold and marble that were imported from foreign nations were used to decorate his house, which served as a demonstration of his position of power. But behind his grandeur was a heart hardened by pride. One evening, Ken hosted a grand feast, inviting nobles, traders, and influential members of the society. Among the guests was a young boy who worked as a servant at Ken's estate. Quietly, the boy whispered to another guest about the beggar's unusual wisdom and kindness. Ken overheard and scoffed. "Wisdom from a beggar? I would rather take advice from a chicken." The room erupted in laughter, feeding his arrogance. The beggar's small act of kindness had become the talk of the town, much to Ken's irritation. However, Ken was unaware of the fact that the beggar had already started to make an impact on people's lives in ways that he did not understand. Because of this, the wealthy businessman's dislike simply became stronger, which paved the way for an unanticipated encounter that eventually left him feeling humbled. One morning, the beggar received an invitation from the royal palace. A messenger presented him with a scroll that had been sealed and engraved with the emblem of the king. The beggar gave a slight nod, and his eyes revealed a level of understanding that was significantly higher than what his outward appearance suggested. Meanwhile, Ken received a similar invitation. The king had announced a gathering where the wealthiest and the poorest would meet, in hopes of fostering unity in the kingdom. What a waste of time, Ken grumbled. Yet, curiosity drove him to accept the invitation. Only a trusted few had seen the new king. It was said that the king postponed his coronation and wanted to have it after 6 months of ascending the throne. So it came as a surprise when the people got an invitation from him to attend the gathering. The palace shone brightly that evening, its walls glittering under the light of countless lanterns. Nobles and commoners mingled awkwardly, their worlds colliding in a way that made some uncomfortable. Ken spotted the beggar, still in his tattered clothes, standing in the corner. "What are you doing here?" Ken whispered harshly. The beggar smiled calmly, replying, "Even the poorest can hold great value in the eyes of the king." Ken rolled his eyes, unaware that his gathering was only the beginning of a dramatic revelation. As the evening progressed, the king made an appearance and announced a challenge. "Tonight, I wish to see who among us truly understands the essence of humility and kindness," he declared. Each guest would be observed secretly. Ken, determined to impress the king, flaunted his wealth by handing out gold coins to the poor in his usual arrogant way. On the other hand, the beggar gently offered a seat to an elderly guy, and throughout the evening, he spent it speaking kindly to the people who were disregarded by others who looked down on them as if inferior. The palace gathering continued into the late hours, and the beggar moved silently among the guests, observing every action. While Ken basked in the attention of nobles and traders bragging about his charity, the king could see through his facade. At one point, a servant tripped while carrying a tray of wine goblets, spilling some contents on the polished marble floor. The crowd booed at the servant's clumsiness, and Ken led the laughter. "Such incompetence," he shouted, shaking his head. In contrast, the beggar knelt, helping the servant gather the broken glass. "We all make mistakes," he said gently, his calm voice silencing the murmurs around them. The servant's eyes filled with gratitude as the beggar gave him an encouraging nod. Behind the scene, the king watched closely, his eyes lingering on the beggar. He gave a gentle smile when he saw what happened. The beggar's small act of kindness carried more weight than all of Ken's grand gestures. The night was far from over, and the king knew it was time to set his plan into motion. When the night ended, the king stood and proclaimed, "The person who showed the greatest humility tonight will be rewarded beyond imagination." Ken smiled smugly, certain he had won. But the king's decision was far from expected, and the truth of the beggar's identity would soon leave everyone in awe. The next day, the king announced a competition to test the virtues of generosity and humility. He handed each guest a small bag of gold coins and instructed them to return in a week with proof of how they used the money to benefit others. Ken, confident in his ability to outshine everyone, immediately began planning extravagant displays of wealth. He paid craftspeople to build a fountain in the market square and threw coins to the crowd, ensuring his name would be praised. The beggar, however, took a different approach. He sought out the forgotten and downtrodden, orphans, widows, and laborers struggling to make ends meet. Instead of simply giving them money, he listened to their needs and used the gold to buy tools for farmers, books for children, and materials for craftspeople to restart their trades. Word spread of the beggar's actions, but no one suspected his true identity. Even Ken, hearing of the beggar's work, dismissed it as insignificant. What difference can a few tools make compared to my fountain? He scoffed. Little did he know, the king's test wasn't about grandeur, it was about impact. When the week ended, the palace was once again filled with guests eager to share their achievements. Ken was among the first to present his work, proudly boasting of the fountain he had commissioned. It stands as a testament of my generosity, he declared, expecting applause. Others shared their stories, some having used the gold to provide food and shelter for the poor. When it was the beggar's turn, he spoke humbly about the people he had helped, naming each one and the tools they now used to rebuild their lives. The room fell silent as his words painted a vivid picture of transformation. The king asked, "Which of these efforts do you believe made the greatest difference?" The crowd murmured, torn between the beggar's sincerity and Ken's grandeur. Ken interrupted, dismissing the beggar's effort as trivial. The king nodded thoughtfully. "We shall see," he said, his eyes twinkling with hidden knowledge. The true measure of generosity lies not in what is given, but in the lives that are changed. The next morning, the beggar disappeared. Whispers spread through the palace as guests speculated about his sudden absence. Meanwhile, the king, now dressed in his royal robes, prepared to reveal the truth. A grand announcement was made, calling everyone to the throne room. As the crowd gathered, they were stunned to see the beggar seated on the throne. Ken's jaw dropped, his face pale with shock. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The king had removed his disguise, revealing himself as the true ruler of the land. His chief advisor, who had acted as the king the past few days in his stead, stood beside him. Gasps filled the room as nobles and commoners alike realized that they had underestimated him. "I wore those rags to see the hearts of my people," the king explained, "and I have learned who is truly noble." The king stood, his presence commanding silence. "For weeks, I walked among you as a beggar, watching how you treated those you deemed unworthy. Some showed kindness, others showed contempt. Today, the truth is revealed." Gasps filled the room as realization dawned. The king's voice grew stern as he addressed Ken directly. "Your fountain may stand tall, but it does little for the people. True generosity is measured not by gold, but by the love and care you show to others." With grace and wisdom, the king passed his judgment. Ken's wealth will be stripped away and redistributed to the people he had ignored. "You must learn to serve others before you can lead," the king said. Ken fell to his knees, pleading for mercy, but the king's decision was final. Meanwhile, those who had shown true compassion were rewarded. The king personally thanked the beggar's beneficiaries, ensuring they had the resources to continue their work. The palace buzzed with excitement as the kingdom began to transform under the king's guidance. For the first time, Ken experienced life as a commoner. He struggled at first, but slowly began to understand the importance of kindness and humility. The lessons he learned would stay with him forever, though the road to redemption was long. With the king's identity revealed, the kingdom entered a new era of compassion and unity. The beggar king's story became a legend, a reminder of the power of humility and the dangers of pride. Schools and marketplaces flourished, built on the foundation of generosity and mutual respect. Ken, now working as a craftsman, found peace in his new life. Though he had lost his wealth, he gained something far more valuable: wisdom and a heart that understood the value of service. In the throne room, the king reflected on the journey that had brought him here. A leader must serve before he can rule, he said to his advisor. And the kingdom must be built on kindness if it is to stand the test of time. The beggar turned king left the crowd with a profound message. Kindness is the greatest currency. It costs nothing but rewards everything. In conclusion, the story of the beggar king teaches us that appearance can be deceiving. It reminds us that true wealth lies in our actions, not our possessions. So, dear viewers, how would you treat someone who seems beneath you? What would you have done if you were Ken? Leave a comment with your thoughts, and please subscribe for more stories with powerful lessons. Thank you for watching.